I'm going to share with you in this video the challenges that I had when I first acquired my first multifamily property. This is in 2010, and certainly the challenges that you have in any kind of new multifamily purchase are going to be different. They're unique to you. These were unique to me, and you'll have a different set of challenges. But the purpose here is to show that you're going to have challenges, you can figure it out, and you can overcome them. If you're not the kind of person who likes to meet a challenge and think of a solution, then real estate is really not for you, because you have to be able to be flexible, roll with the punches, and understand things and take the time to figure them out and design solutions for them. So my first property was a half an hour down the road, and it was a 3-unit property. I started off knowing nothing about it. Certainly I had work experiences and other things that I was good at that I thought these are transferable skills, but really had nothing, no real estate skills to bring into this endeavor. The fact that you're listening to this video now means that you're taking the time to learn a few things, which is great. And hopefully you're learning a lot of them, not spending an enormous amount of time learning it, but you need to take the time to educate yourself through whatever means works for you. And I'm glad that you found me here. So the challenges were among a number of different things. I'm not going to go through all the normal challenges of you need to learn how to write a lease or find a tenant or understand the notification rules of your state and your jurisdiction. Those are all certainly very important, but I'm not going to go through all the things that you need. You can find that out in other places. And certainly these are not the worst challenges that I had. I had more challenges in future properties, and I'll take the time to share a few of those with you, but I just wanted to let you know the things that I encountered in this first property. The first one was the property had an HOA. Today, I'm not a big fan of HOAs. I'm pretty sure that I knew that it had an HOA, but I definitely did not know what it meant to the property. An HOA can be a convenience, but in this case is really not run well. We were all volunteers. It was a bunch of us. There were probably about 8 properties in this one collective along one main street. 2 units, 3 units, and 4 units. And mine was a 3-unit. And so all of us owners of properties would get together, I don't know, once a month, once a quarter, something like that, and get together and talk about what was going on. Took responsibility for certain shared expenses. Don't recall what all they were, but there was general agreement, and there was an HOA fee that covered what the expenses were. Things like maybe trash pickup and water utilities, grounds maintenance. For the most part, I think the HOA covered those, but in general, we did not have good agreement. We also had, it was 2010, it was at a time when a lot of owners of apartments had difficulty making their mortgage payments and paying for other things. And so we had about, of 8 of us, there were at least 3 or so that weren't making their HOA fee dues. So the rest of us had to cover that. That was one problem. It was also getting difficult having an agreement among the different partners about taking care of the properties. We're all kind of had a focus on making investments and getting a piece of real estate running. We didn't really sign up for having other people having a say in what we did on our own property. But here we were. That was the case. You just kind of roll with it. You figure out what you can do, what the limitations are, and you exert your voice in the conversations. You try to influence the direction of these things, and you also understand the perspective of other people. It's just like any other partnership or work environment. You have to take the time to understand other people. You have to know where they're coming from and what their issues were. One of them was losing a lot of money because he had a water leak and he had let it go for too long. He didn't know where it was coming from, and it was costing him tens of thousands of dollars. It was just an awful situation for that person, but that influenced where what their decisions were made. Another challenge that I had was I inherited a tenant that no, I take that back. I brought that tenant in. The tenant had tattoos on their neck. And so I don't have any major misgivings about people with tattoos. I mean, goodness, we all have important and close personal people in our networks that have gotten tattoos of various kinds, and maybe they're all over their face, or maybe this guy had it on a neck. It kind of represented a rough background for him. But I talked to him. He had a wife and 2 little kids, and I talked to him, and the guy was just really straight and narrow. He was a good guy, and I liked him and brought him in. And he talked like he was formerly associated with people he shouldn't have associated with, and maybe the tattoos were a legacy of all that. But nevertheless, he turned out to be an awesome tenant, and I thought that was an initial challenge. Like, do we really need to have somebody like this come in? I was ultimately glad that I did. A third challenge was in this time period, as I mentioned, people were having financial struggles, especially if they own real estate or if they own investment real estate. And so one of the neighbors of mine had stopped paying their mortgage. I don't know what reason. Maybe they had refinanced and had a mortgage much higher than what the property is worth or what they can get in rents. I had bought it when all this financial crisis, the subprime mortgages crisis and the recession from 2008, 2009, it had died down, and I got a good deal on my property. I bought it in 2010, and so my debt service payments, mortgages were not quite so burdensome as some of these other properties. They fit the rents that I was able to get, and not all of my neighbors could say the same thing. So one of the neighbors had their debt service was too high, and they just stopped paying it. What also was going on at this time was the banks couldn't process all of the problem properties that they had. And so the bank was not even coming after them yet. This person hadn't made their mortgage payment for over a year, and they were just collecting rents. They continued finding renters, they collected the rents, and things were actually pretty good for them. The day of reckoning had not arrived yet, but what they also did was they were not taking care of the property. They were letting it fall to pieces. They were not taking care of the outside, and that reflected on my property. There's nothing we could do. I kept going to these HOA meetings saying, what can we do? What can we do? Because these guys had more experience in HOAs than I did. But there was nothing. There was not much that we could do. We tried to do a number of different strategies around them, trying to squeeze them and get them to pay rents, or maybe compromise with them and get them to pay part of it. But they weren't even paying dues, and the rest of us had to pick up that slack. Another challenge that I had was related to, well, let me give you the background. I had a friend, still friend of mine, who was running a local real estate meetup, and I was going to the real estate meetup and enjoying the sessions, and he had a side business of replacing carpets, and at the time, and he also was a firefighter in the region where my property was. And so I needed a carpet. I hired him to get carpets put down. He went out and did this. He and a couple of people in his company did this and put the carpets in. Everything went well. Carpets were great, and and I was back in business and got the unit rented out. A few months later, I got a phone call. So I had a W-2 job, and during the day it was a half an hour up the road, and I got a phone call from this guy, and he said, "John, your apartment's on fire." And I said, I mean, I can laugh about it now, but I said, "Holy cow, what the heck happened?" He said, "I don't know. I just heard it over the radio and I recognized your address." He remembered my address because he put the carpets in there. So fortunate. Just so many things went my way on that particular event. I said, "Oh, thank you so much." I ran out of the office, jumped in my car, and drove down to the property. And sure enough, the fire trucks were there. As it turns out, it was a bright, sunny summer afternoon, and there were people walking by my property, and they saw smoke inside. And the unit happened to not be rented. There was no current renter. It was in the middle of a turn, and they called the fire department. Fire department came out. They got in, and they discovered the problem. It was the cleaner had propped a cutting board up next to an electric stove, accidentally bumped the stove burner on, and the cutting board fell onto that burner and was starting to burn, to char, and smoke that place up. There weren't any actual flames. It was just a lot of smoke, and the fire department got in there in time to put it out, pulled the burnt up cutting board out, and everything was fine. There was no additional damage. I went in and I was just breathing a sigh of relief. The place stunk really bad. It had a lot of smoke smell in it, and it took a long time to get that smoke smell out. They had to figure out what are the ozone or O2 generators that you rent that they can they produce the molecules that attach to the stinky pieces of the air, the smoke molecules, and they combine and they make some other molecule, and it falls to the ground and gets the smoke out of your apartment, something like that. Took care of it, but that was a big piece of what happened to me. It could have been worse. I didn't have a smoke. I didn't have. I don't know. I can't recall if the smoke detector went off. Actually, it might have. That may be what the people walking by heard, but I didn't have alarm monitoring or anything like that. And so, if it weren't for the people who walked by, I would not have heard about it. And so, those are the few of the bad things that happened. Certainly, there were good things that happened on my property, and I would say that I'm checking my notes here. Anything else that I can't remember? But no, those were the bad things. There were good things, certainly, to be sure. We got better renters, higher income, eventually appreciation, and was able to sell it and buy a bigger property with those proceeds. I mean, there's a lot of stories to that. But you have these challenges. You can figure them out and move on to the next challenges and all the good things about real estate. This is what makes it interesting: meeting interesting people and having a lot of positive outcomes in your property. But stay tuned. We'll talk about other properties and some of the other challenges that we've had. And hope you enjoyed this, and hope you can provide some comments and feedback, because that's what helps me understand what resonates with people, and helps me know that I'm helping other people move their real estate business forward. And love to hear from you in the future.